So today we are making Rebatch. And no, it's not because I ran out of content. It's because Scout ran out of shampoo. Confused? Me too, actually. And we'll get into why that's so confusing in just a minute. But before we do, hi, I'm Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are here for another round of 365 days of soap, and today we're making a Rebatch soap. Now, you remember when I made the beer soap in the Big Lather Test, and it was ugly and horrible, and we had the separation, and we had the ricing, and we had everything went wrong? You remember that? Yeah, and it, like at the end, it had these oily pockets in these places, and it was very rough, and it was not. But it ended up having my favorite lather with all of it. And it turns out that soap, totally good. It completely passed all pH tests in a variety of ways, in all of the ways that I do my pH testing, really. And it's actually a decent bar soap, but it's still really ugly. And so I thought we could totally rebatch that today and make a floating soap. And it's a double whammy soap, because not only is it a floating soap, but this is Scout, the Soap and Clay Kidlet number 2's most favorite soap to use for her hair as a shampoo. And that is a very interesting debate among soap makers in and of itself, of a cold process shampoo versus a syndet bar, and can you put it on your hair, etc. And yeah, it's confusing, because for Scout, for the second Soap and Clay Kidlet, her hair is very light. It's very light in color, and it's very fine. And my hair, it's very dark in color, and it's very thick. And Soap and Clay Kidlet number 1, her hair, very dark in color, very thick, and also curly. It's very, very textured. And so we all have different hair types. And for Scout, her hair actually responds better to a Rebatch soap, preferably with a beer in it, than anything else, be it liquid shampoo that you buy at the store, or any of the syndet or shampoo cold process bars that I've made. It's totally wild. So yeah, let's go watch the making of the soap, and we'll talk about why that is. So, do you remember back during the Big Lather Test when we did the beer soaps, and it started separating, and then it started getting weird, and it was just an ugly bar? I ultimately ended up loving that lather more than any other sugar that we tested through that. And so the soap itself was actually fine. It was just horrifically ugly. But I decided to go ahead and rebatch it anyway and make one of the Soap and Clay Kidlet's favorite soaps, which is a floating soap that she uses as a shampoo. And so this is what we're doing today. We are rebatching soap. Now, with a rebatch, you are going to essentially shred down soap, and if you have really fresh soap, you don't need to add any extra liquid. And the soap for the beer soap test was actually very fresh and still pretty soft, so we didn't need to add any extra liquid to this. And one of the benefits of actually using this for the rebatch is that it is a beer soap, so that lather is already exceptional. And yeah, it's cool. But the really kind of not cool part about the rebatch soaps is that it takes a lot of the melting and the mixing and the doing of the things to get it to like a reasonably smooth consistency. And you're never actually ever going to get a rebatch soap to like super smooth. And that's not great, but it makes it great for a nice, rustic bar. And again, with this, we are going to put the lid back on it and let it continue to melt down. Now, this entire process, I would say, takes
about 2 hours in total to really melt everything down and then get it to a whippable consistency. And at this point, it's reasonably okay. And so I'm going to be taking my my stick blender to it and start really breaking up some of those extra chunks. Now, rebatch is a cool thing to do for a number of reasons. I actually have rebatch in my line in the scratch and dent section on the website at soapandclay.com for the mystery bar, as well as the everything but the kitchen sink bar. And it's a fun way to use your soap shreds or the cuts that you've made that aren't quite big enough to, you know, sell, you know, full price or proper like, or, you know, soaps like this that ended up really ugly. And you can do some fun kind of crazy things with them. And this one isn't super crazy. Again, it is a shampoo bar that I am making for scalp. Now, this is not the, you know, quote unquote right way to make a shampoo bar. And there's an interesting debate in the soaping community about what is a real shampoo bar versus not a real shampoo bar. And this is, again, it is a rebatch soap, and it is a rebatch soap from a, you know, lye-based, a cold process, you know, soap. So there is a school of thought that believes, you know, syndet bars are better because of the pH. And there is another school of thought within the soap making community that believes that is not accurate, and you are never going to actually get a shampoo bar with a syndet or not to really impact the pH of your hair and or your scalp. And that's an interesting really discussion, and I don't really know if I want to get into that. You let me know in the comments if you would like my opinions on shampoo bars, and, you know, who has the right version, be it a detergent, you know, syndet bar or a cold process bar, and what my opinions are on that. And if there's interest, I'll do my shampoo bars. But anyway, this particular bar, the second Soap and Clay Kidlet, Scout, she loves this for her shampoo because A, it floats in the tub, and that's super awesome, and 2, it actually really responds really well to her hair. And, you know, whenever she uses this particular, you know, it's a rebatch with a beer soap that I put some extra essential oils in to, you know, specifically for her hair, for, you know, thin hair, it does really well. But we have melted this down some more. Again, I'm just using a regular crock pot for this, for the rebatch. You can use, I don't know, I mean, I guess you can do it in the stove. Crock pots work well for me because I don't have an actual like oven at the soap shop, right? Like a stove. And so I do crock pots. The hardest thing about rebatch, honestly, is remembering that you have a rebatch soap going on. And if you forget, you end up with a really weird smell sort of coming from your, you know, wherever, and what is that? And oh yeah, great, I'm sort of burning soap, and that's disgusting. But I'm remembering for this particular, you know, batch because I'm recording it for the YouTube. But anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm using the stick blender more to fully break down these chunks and really start kind of whipping it up into a consistency that will end up having enough air essentially whipped into it that it will float, which is cool. Now, because this is for Scout's hair, we are going to be putting in some tea tree oil. Now, tea tree oil is really good. It's a nice natural antibacterial, which is good for, you know, balancing the skin's pH on the scalp, as well as, you know, warding off any sort of beastlies that you might encounter, you know, lice and dandruff and all that jazz. I'm terrified of lice. If the Soap and Clay Kidlets ever come home with lice, I will shave their heads. I'm not kidding. And we are also putting some orange in there, some orange 10X, and that is also, it's a really good clarifying thing, especially for people with sort of the thinner hair. And Soap and Clay Kidlet number 2 has very thin blonde hair. Soap and Clay Kidlet number 1 has very textured coarse hair, and so they have to use, you know, 2 completely different, you know, things. And rosemary essential oil is also going into this guy, again, for the antibacterial properties, for the shine, to help balance the skin's pH, the scalp's pH, and to help out with hair growth, because Soap and Clay Kidlet number 2 is trying to grow her hair out right now. So every little bit, you know, kind of helps. Now, once those essential oils have been put in, we're going to continue whipping. The cool thing about a rebatch soap is that you can absolutely use this as an opportunity to use the essential oil blends that would otherwise be really difficult to incorporate into a traditional cold process recipe, right? Like citrus is a really good example of that. Citrus notes, they are so light, they are so, you know, just kind of fragile, that they don't really survive the saponification process. And the saponification process of soap, you know, if you think about it, it's a pretty violent process, right? I mean, we're breaking down these fatty acid structures, the internal, you know, core of the soap, whether or not you're C-popping it, is heating up to, you know, 130, 140, 180 degrees. And as a result, you know, the flash point of, you know, like a citrus essential oil, for example, is reasonably low. It's burning off rather quickly. And so, you know, you put tons and tons of essential oils into your soaps only to find that that beautiful orange smell or that grapefruit or whatever did not come through the saponification process. It didn't survive. That's really disheartening. So a cool way to ensure that you get that beautiful orange smell or citrus smell is to, you know, do a rebatch, because you're adding the essential oils in at the end, essentially. So you're also using less, which is cool because essential oils can be, you know, very pricey. Now with this, it is now the consistency that I'm happy with, that I'm not going to mess with anymore. I have heard tales about rebatch soap being able to get to a more, like a smoother consistency. I don't know about all that, because I always get it to this point and go, I am bored with this, because though this is a short video, this was 2 hours of my life babysitting a crock pot. And, you know, at this point, I'm just, I'm done. It's a decent consistency. It's a rebatch soap. It goes to, you know, the scratch and dent $4 a bar section on the website. I am gonna be happy with this cool rustic look. And yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm pressing everything into the molds, and it is very important that with a rebatch soap, because it is thicker, because you have that mashed potato type consistency, that you really press everything in really firmly so you don't end up with any like really offensive giant air pockets. Now some air pockets are great, right? Because again, this is sort of a rustic bar, so it all kind of works out. Now we are going to let this set up for a couple hours before we unmold and check it out. Now, another cool thing about rebatch soap is obviously, I mean, you're saving a bar, which is cool, and you're, you know, repurposing, you know, soap scraps, which is also cool. But also, you have the ability to sort of unmold it, and it's usable within, you know, a few hours or a few days, depending on how, you know, sort of moist your original soaps were to begin with. And that's great, because this process has essentially, you know, cooked out any residual lye that may exist, but the bar itself, it shouldn't have any residual lye, because again, this is a rebatch of an existing cold process soap that you already made. So yeah, it's completely safe to use. And again, this is, you know, it's rustic. It's not, you know, the perfectly smooth, beautiful bar, but it is awesome as far as the moisture qualities of it go, and the gentleness of the bar. Now we are going to test the whole floating nature of this soap, and so we're going to go ahead and plop it into a bucket there, and let's see, why are you not, oh yeah, there you go, okay, yep, look, it floats. That's awesome. And it's one of Scout's favorite things in the whole entire world, that her soap floats. And again, for her hair type, this is a perfect bar, and this is kind of why, like with the essential oils that I put into this, it's really good for her hair type and her hair structure. But the lather itself, it's such a beautiful, beautiful bubble. Like, I mean, look at this. Look at that. That is so pretty, and it's such an effervescent bubble, and it's very cleansing but also moisturizing. It's not stripping your hair of any of its needed moisture, and it's also not weighing it down, which for, you know, fine haired people is very important. And yeah, just to show you, you know, like a floating soap versus a not floating soap, because have you ever bothered doing it? No. Look, that sinks. Hey, no, it doesn't float. And so look, a floating soap. We whipped enough air into it that it floats. And that one does not. So lame. Yeah. But yeah, so there it is. There is the floating soap rebatch of the Ugly beer soaps.
So there you have it, a floating soap. Super cute, right? It's, yeah, fun. Kids love it in the bathtub because the soap floats and that's fun. And yeah, as far as rebatch goes, it's rebatch. I've heard that there are ways to make your rebatch smoother, but I've never actually had the patience to really work out any of the lumps and bumps. Because ultimately when I'm doing rebatch, it's either going to be for the everything but the kitchen sink bar or for the mystery bar on the website. And it's a nice, awesome way to completely use up any of your soap scraps that you might have, be it from when you're, trimming your bars, or in cases like this where the bar itself it's ugly and I can't really do anything that I want with it in its form. So let's make it more rustic and call it scratch and dent. At any rate, this is a really fun soap, and if you are interested in purchasing it, you can do so on the website. You would need to go to Scratch and Dent and put the bar called the Mystery Bar into your cart. And if you're specifically interested in these floating soaps with the beer and all of that jazz, you would need to leave a note in your order saying, that that's what you want, and I will do my best to accommodate. Thank you so much for joining us for another round of 365 Days of Soap. Super appreciate it. If you are interested in following me on social media, I'm there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And you're here and I super appreciate it. So if you haven't subscribed and you're new to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe. That really helps me out a lot. And yeah, that's it for me today, and I will see you tomorrow. See ya.